The next thing that we think about is supporting professional development and building a supportive culture. When we're saying it's so important to meet kids where they're at, it is so important to build relationships with parents, we first need to build staff's confidence in doing that. And so, really prioritizing being able to provide ongoing training to staff so they feel confident in managing daily health needs of youth and responding to emergencies. So, this training should not only cover common chronic conditions, as well as conditions that are present in your program. How to recognize symptoms, what kind of accommodations might be needed, emergency procedures, the safe use of health devices and medications. We also want to build staff's confidence in adapting activities and in meeting youth's needs in real time. And so that goes beyond one in-service training that focuses on this. Maybe that's something that you're taking 5 minutes out of, each staff meeting that you have to do a brief role play or to practice, what would it feel like to have a conversation with a parent? You're having maybe some more seasoned staff or leadership staff invite other staff in to have these conversations so that they can be modeling how they're building these relationships and building that comfort. Oops, sorry. I'm trying to click my slides ahead and I'm clicking the chat. All right. We also want to think about how we build a network of care through collaboration and shared leadership. I cannot emphasize enough really thinking about all of the players in this as being a team together. Youth and families, staff, school nurses, school wellness councils, outside providers. What are the things that you can be doing to help center and raise the voices of all of these folks together in doing this proactive planning and problem solving, that we're not just waiting for an emergency to happen? And so involving youth, wanting youth to be active partners in their health when it's appropriate, involving them in their planning and accommodations, creating spaces for them to express their needs, for them to share things that work for them, using a strength-based approach. We really want to be centering youth as experts in their own condition. What works best when this happens for you? How would you like us to be talking about this in front of in front of your peers? Or how would you like us to be, talking about this to other adults that are in the program? Really empowering them to have that autonomy and to own their own communication about that. Supporting them in setting their goals, having them be involved in the creation of their individual health plan, co-designing parts of their schedule or activities. Again, not only, when you think of the benefits of out of school time, not only did these things help that student in that moment, but it also is building lifelong self-management skills for themselves and for managing their chronic condition. When we think about empowering families, again, doing this in a way that shows that you value and are centering their knowledge, their culture, their strengths, that they are the expert on their child, and starting from there. And so maybe there are things that you can't do in the out of school time program that they do in school, and you want to explain the difference between those things. But starting that they know their child best, they know what works for their child, and building from there. You want to also, helping parents to become advocates. I am a huge fan of, in all of these steps, really walking parents through these things, ensuring informed consent. I would never hand a paper to a parent that for, consenting to sharing some information, or, hey, can you fill this out so that I can get it to the school nurse so that, we can get a copy of the health plan and it says that you've agreed to it. I would never just put a piece of paper in front of a parent and have them sign it. I would say, I want to make sure that you understand what this is. I want to make sure that you understand by signing this, it means I can find this out from the nurse and the nurse can find this out from me. I want you to understand that by signing this, it means I can do this for the whole entire school year unless you tell me, nope, I'm going to write on here, I want you can do this for a week and get what you need. And then I don't want you doing that unless you ask me again. Whatever it might be, it's really important to empower families to understand what's happening as far as communication, what their rights are. Um, and then just, as school nurses, wellness councils, any opportunity that you can have to connect with health related, wellness related staff at your school, becoming a partner with them really is an opportunity not only to facilitate communication, but potentially also for shared resources. Maybe they're having a training that all of the school nurses are attending that's coming up on asthma management, and they're already paying for the training. They've already got space for it. And they say, oh, we don't mind if your staff want to join that also. And so knowing that there's that opportunity for collaboration and shared resources. And then encouraging collaboration again among this core care team, among each other to think about, what are the pathways to that communication. It's just, I feel like I feel like a little bit of a broken record, but I just feel like I can't say it enough that communicating clearly, consistently, and proactively. And so being able to communicate, develop, and communicate clear policies. I think all of us know a policy is only as good as being able to communicate it, have people's engagement, and buy and to follow it. And so, establishing written policies that guide how are we going to know that someone has a chronic condition? How are we going to support it? What are our emergency response plans going to be? Those are all really important, but making sure that those are then communicated, that everyone knows how to find it, that everyone feels comfortable communicating to a parent what it is, what it means, where they can find it. Um, and this again, these policies really should range all the way from first interactions from parents and how you're identifying a chronic condition to what are we going to do day to day to be proactive, to manage medications, to manage schedules. How are we going to respond in emergency? And then I think sometimes people also forget that post-incident debriefing, that you do also want to make sure that you have a policy around what do we do after an emergency happens? How do we document how do we go back to our documentation to say what went well, what could we do better next time? How do we ensure that staff are cared for? That, I can tell you that watching a child have a seizure is incredibly scary. And in the moment, you are there, you're doing the things, but afterward, you might need some time to take a beat. And that child is going to need some recovery time and a plan for returning. And so that post-incident policy and practices is really important as well, and should be, and we don't want you to forget that. We talked some about this already, establishing collaborative communication systems. Again, I think the best policy is always to ask, how do you like to be communicated with? What's the best time of day to communicate? Do you like to use Messenger? Do you like to use text? Is it better to text you during the day or is it better to text you in the evening? Would you rather meet in person? And this is true not just for parents, but providers. I've worked on projects where I've worked really closely with pediatricians, and they have said, I know this is going to sound weird, and please do not apply this to all pediatricians. This was one pediatrician, I should say, that I worked with. Her preference was that I text her if I needed something at 7:30 in the morning, because that was her little window that she had when she was done with her own kids, before she jumped into her day, that she could be available to answer quick questions over text. And so we set that up beforehand, that was what worked best for her. There are also more formal ways to exchange information. We have a couple resources here that we wanted to share with you. Using shared consent forms can be an amazing not only way to have clear communication among all the parties, but honestly, a huge time saver, because I can tell you as a parent, I often ended up being the person that, because the school nurse wasn't able to talk to the out of school time program, I would say, okay, great. So she would give me a copy of my child's individual health plan because I, as the parent, could have a copy of it. And then I would have to give it to the out of school time provider. And then I'd have to make sure that there was medication at school and also medication at the provider. And then I would have to, if anything changed with our other provider, I'd have to communicate that to everybody. I was also sometimes expected to be the expert in my child's health condition and provide information to all of these people. And so having things like this school health information sharing toolkit is incredibly helpful. The AAP and the National Association of School Nurses created this. We're going to put the link in the chat. And it is something that you can adapt to out of school time. And what they endeavored to do was to create one consent form. It's called a bi-directional consent so that multiple parties could sign onto it and then they could all share information instead of I'll only share information if you signed my particular form and then you have to sign this form so that we can share information. That's a great resource. Also, something like a memorandum of understanding. There's templates out there. You can make it as super specific and formal or less specific, to meet your needs. But it's basically sitting down and creating a written agreement that says, as a partner together on this, you're going to agree to do this. We're going to agree to do this. Here's how that's going to happen together. Here's the time frame. It can be incredibly helpful to get those processes with partners written down. And then it may also just be things like, we're going to create a timeline together. We're going to create a calendar together that I'm going to touch base with you once a quarter. We're going to put that meeting on the calendar, and that's when that's going to happen. Lastly, I just wanted to take a minute to talk about the importance of being proactive with families. Again, I think we have said this many times throughout today, but supporting them with everything from completing intake and forms around medication administration, explaining how policies work, explaining why something maybe seems like it's not going to be able to work in the out of school time setting the same way that they think it would be, and approaching that to come together with a strength-based, problem-solving, focused lens. Proactively establishing those relationships will really take you a long way. And also being able to establish relationships with those partners and other care providers so that you can have these warm handoffs and this shared communication back and forth.